Good morning. Most of you probably recognize me as a kid who's desperately in need of a haircut. But if you take a look at my dad in the first couple rows up here, you'll understand that I want to enjoy my hair while I have it. I'm also the one who wears flannel with a tie and is convinced they match perfectly, and the weird Canadian who wears Birkenstocks 12 months out of the year. My name is Fiorini, and I'm a 6'4" boarder from Montreal, Canada. Living in Montreal, you'd be hard-pressed to find a young boy whose dream wasn't to grow up one day and play in the NHL. Without a doubt, hockey is a part of our Canadian identity, and by the age of 5, it quickly became part of mine. Growing up, hockey was nothing less than an obsession. I was completely immersed in the passion and competition of the game. I loved everything about it. At a very young age, I knew without a doubt that the sport would have an impact on my life. Yet 14 years ago, I would never have imagined how significant the impact would be. Have no fear, however. I'm not here to bore you by trying to explain that hockey is the be-all and end-all of life itself. In fact, over the years, I've come to understand that there is far more to life than some silly game a select few of us take so seriously. Admittedly, there are times when the passion we share for this game makes it seem like hockey is the only thing that matters. Coach John always tells us to leave our lives and distractions at the door of the rink. So in a sense, for a couple hours a day, from November to March, the only thing we cared about was this game. As my time playing hockey has come and gone, I've learned that it really isn't about the game itself. But more importantly, it's about the lessons we learn, the lessons that will remain with us for the rest of our lives. At the beginning of this school year, I had the chance to speak with Dr. Lee, the school psychologist. He mentioned something that would remain with me through the pinnacle of my darkest days. As we talked, he said, "With every end of a chapter comes the beginning of a new one. That's the story of life." So here's my story. The story of an average Canadian boy whose obsession for a game would lead to the devastating struggles of repeated concussions. The devastation of this injury began abruptly in the summer of 2013, at the age of 14. I had received my first concussion. This weird feeling was unlike anything I had ever felt. Unaware of what it was, I naturally addressed it as no big deal. A couple months later, I got my second, dizzy and confused. A few weeks later, a freak accident in a ball hockey game left me with a fractured skull and another concussion. A few weeks later, another, and then again, and then again. Eventually, I began to lose count, and they became so frequent that while suffering the symptoms of one concussion, I would simultaneously receive another. Yet somehow the desire to play the game allowed me to convince myself that there was nothing wrong, not knowing that the game I once cherished so deeply would never be the same. Days quickly turned into weeks, months, and eventually entire seasons, immersed in the awful sufferings of these injuries. Quickly, the life I once knew began to fade away as the struggles became overwhelming. My concussions accelerated during my years playing hockey here at Wesley. KUA, Avon, Taft, Deerfield, Pomfret, Avon, Canterbury, Taft, KUA, Deerfield, Brunswick, Avon, Salisbury. I could go on and on. All games I distinctly remember as being hampered by head injuries. Non-violent hits that would have no effect on most players, but for me, simply added to the pile of problems. I would convince myself before each game that it would all be worth it, as I was completely obsessed in the dream of bringing back a championship to this community. But each time, on the drive back to campus, as the excitement and the intensity of the game wore off, and the dizziness and pain began to take their place, Once again, I would question my decisions with an intense fear for the future. As the symptoms refused to go away, I became increasingly ashamed and scared. I labored under the false assumption that concussions and their symptoms are a result of weakness. And this belief left me silent, because talking about it meant admitting that something was wrong, and that I wasn't suited for the game I loved. Yet, with every silent day and every hit came more pain, more damage, and more fear. These symptoms quickly led to uncontrollable anxiety and depression. I felt alone and helpless, and with it came the darkest years of my life. I began to dread every day as I battled with dizziness, confusion, irritation, and an inability to be myself, both on and off the ice. Little things I once took for granted became daunting tasks. Looking down at my textbooks led to aggravating headaches. Turning my head and bending down led to increased dizziness. Texting my dad following a game was no longer easy, as I fumbled with my words. In pain from the bright light and dizzy from looking down, I would lie and tell him it was a good game. He would always ask me how I was feeling. I responded hiding behind my screen with consistent lies. I'm fine. Unfortunately, most of my memories of my teenage years are drowned out by the struggle of these symptoms. Most prominent, I remember sitting around the dinner table at my grandparents' house for Canadian Thanksgiving. It was something I always looked forward to as a kid. But as the years went on, this holiday quickly became a source of anxiety. Irritated by conversation, struggling to look down at my plate, and ashamed that I might have disappointed my family as I looked helplessly into their smiling faces. What I considered to be the darkest page of my story came early one morning. While preparing for school and the struggles that would inevitably come with it, I reminded myself that every life comes to an end, and that there would come a day where it would be all over. Somehow at the time, I found comfort in this. Looking back, I am horrified at the power of this injury and how severely it succeeded in altering my way of thinking. My worst experience came during the tail end of my first 10th grade year. At the time, I explained to everyone that I was simply stressed about exams. I didn't want to admit that I had taken a rather soft hit to the head during a game, a hit that would lead to the 2 worst weeks of my life. I stayed in bed for days. The dizziness was so intense that I couldn't stand up. The thought of showering and eating gave me anxiety. I distinctly remember going for a walk with my dad one night. For the first time in days, I had the courage to leave the house. Using a broken hockey stick to keep my balance, fighting back tears. Every part of me wanted to tell my dad what was going on, but the intense shame I felt, fearing I would disappoint him or scare him, while reminding myself that this doesn't happen to real hockey players, kept me from doing so. Hours of alone time led to more depression and regret, reminiscing about the days when I didn't know what the word concussion meant, when I was able to spend time with my family without the feeling of letting them down. Most of all, I remember the painful, confused nights drowned in tears. Imagine a teenage boy, supposed to be some tough hockey player, crying to his mom with an intense fear for the future, begging her to come up with the reason for why this was all happening, but together, we never could. Every day as I continue to fight the occasional symptoms, I'm reminded that my future is infinitely unclear, but I'm relieved by the fact that my battle with hockey is all over. A game that I once held so close to my heart, a game that defined who I was and who I would become, is no longer a part of me. I will never lace up my skates for a competitive hockey game again. However, as I look forward to a brighter future, and the idea of walking towards a new chapter, I have a tough time believing this decision won't be worth it. I've come to realize that sometimes the best cure is simply to let go. Finally, I could be the happy son I always wanted to be and make my parents proud. I could spend time with my grandparents and cherish their smiling faces without having to hide behind a mask. I could admire the families in our community with hope that one day I could enjoy a life with my own kids. And I could look myself in the mirror. Simply talking about my pain allowed me to let go of everything I once guarded so carefully. I only wish now that I would have had the courage to speak up earlier. But starting as a secret internal battle has led me to speaking out loud to all of you today. This should attest to the strength of this community. And together, we must hold each other to a standard of helping and caring for one another, keeping in mind that pain and struggle do not always lie on the surface. Secondly, I want to highlight the importance of struggle. No matter how dark and dreadful some days, weeks, months, or years may feel, I truly believe that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Although you'll notice that once the storm has passed and you've made it through the battle you never thought possible, you'll be able to appreciate the little things this life has to offer. You'll be able to smile, a real smile, without it serving as a mask that covers your pain. I want to thank all those that have helped me along the way. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens for taking me into their home, Dr. Lee, Dr. Smith, and Ms. Charleglio for looking out for me. Mr. and Mrs. Jonkis for being the incredible role models we can all look up to. Mr. Court for teaching me that happiness comes from pursuing what we love. My teammates for keeping me going and giving me the 3 best years of my life. My friends, my teachers, and my coaches. And finally, to the most caring, loving parents any boys can ask for. Thank you for the support and patience in bringing my life to darkness. To the entire Westminster community, I am forever indebted for what